Okay, so good afternoon, Eduardo. It's a pleasure to have you here. It's a really very kind of you to make time to discuss with us your opinions, your experiences on this topic. So, um, yeah, I'm really pleased that we can have this conversation and have a testimony of your ideas. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Juan.
So, for a start, maybe it would be useful to remind the audience a little bit about your technical background, your technical interests at the moment.
Okay. All right. I started my undergraduate career in Brazil studying electrical engineering. Then I moved to graduate studies in England at the University of Southampton, where I focused on electronics. And at the time, the British government donated sort of three major grants to three universities. Southampton was one of them, for £50 million to start a study on microelectronics. So I joined this program for my graduate studies and finished my PhD on that subject. Then returning to Brazil, I concentrated on IT most of the time, but eventually to innovation. And I was very taken by this idea that innovation could change the world. And eventually I became sort of frustrated by the fact that innovation was going mostly to consumer gadgets. And so the next consumer gadget is not making a lot of difference in our lives, really. And probably 15 years ago, I moved, although continuing working on innovation, I moved to cities. And the idea is cities are the place where most of the relevant problems in the world are happening. That's where we have the major impact on the environment. That's where we have poverty, all the social problems, security, public safety in cities. And life in the city is not at all well. And innovation in the cities is very poor. We're still doing the same things in the cities as we did we have been doing for years. And so I concentrated on this, on the social, let's say, aspects of the city, of the life in the city. And then we crossed paths with smart cities, because smart cities are mostly about technology. And our area of research is sort of a diversion from technology per se, and we focus on the social change that is possible with technology. It's not against technology. We are not Luddites saying don't put your smart camera or something or your IoT things in the city. It's just that they must have a purpose. And the trouble with technology is that we are very, very addicted to technology. So, and you see, you go to a city, the mayor buys another 1,000 cameras. He had 1,000 cameras before, now he has 2,000 cameras, and he thinks he got a smarter city. Well, the city might be smarter, but the citizen is just the same. He's not better because of the additional 1,000 cameras. So I think there's a lot to do related to cities, and I in our group, and this is a sort of an international group. There are several people working with this, and we call that humane and sustainable smart cities. It's a sort of a diversion from smart cities technology only but smart cities from the perspective of the citizen, not only technology.
That's very true, Eduardo. I agree fully with your concepts. And in terms of, if you have to assess the current state of the art of smart cities around the world, not only in Brazil, but United States, China, Australia, Europe, what was your take on how things are at the moment?
I think we are at the very beginning, really. Changes in the cities, but cities are living organisms. So changes are very difficult because everything you change, there's an interference here, there, and everywhere. So it's very difficult to change anything in the city. For instance, if you decide to shorten the width of a sidewalk, you can do that easily because everyone thinks that we need more space for cars. Now, if you try to widen a sidewalk, then it's a major thing in the city. Everyone is against it. Are you mad? We have this traffic already. What's going to happen? So I think that we are just at the beginning of a major change that will happen in our cities. And this change was, in a way, it's very bad to talk about the pandemic as something good, but in this particular respect, the pandemic brought to the city a different perspective. We are now talking about people spending more time at home. They are more worried what is their relation to their neighbors. They look now with some sympathy to the small square that is near the house but is not used for anything. And I think that the pandemic will accelerate the change, not only inside the house. Of course, it will change the house as well, the home, because working from home implies several different architectural arrangements inside the home. So that's one change that's going to happen. It's happening already. But in the city, as people work more time at home, they also want services close to their home. So instead of having the old arrangement that you have downtown, where the services are for anything related to work, to a distribution of city centers around the city. So I think that what's going to happen now, we will have multi-centered cities where places where people live, where there's a large concentration of people living there, will also be places for work. And we will have work, living, and play in several locations in town. So we're moving from a sort of a radial organization of the city, from the neighborhoods to the downtown, to a sort of an arrangement of multi-centered places where in each one of them we will have work, living, and play at the same location. So this change is going to happen, is happening, and it's all over the world, really. But I think that we have to change several aspects of the running concept that we have of the city today.
That's very interesting, Eduardo. And what do you think are the main problems, the barriers, the bottlenecks to develop that idea better?
I think that I think that there are, let's say, a few of them. Let's take the most important ones. First, there is the trouble with cars. We love our cars, and the cities are really made for cars. So it's very difficult that you find a city where you have a department to take care of pedestrians. I never heard of a pedestrian department in a city. There's always a traffic department. The traffic department, yes, we need to take care of the cars and the traffic, but it's not a pedestrian or a bike department. And when we say the word mobility or smart mobility or active mobility, people immediately relate that to cars. So one of the major barriers that we have to change in the city is this fact that no, this city is not made for cars, it's made for people. Right. And so this is it's a sort of a mindset. We believe in that it's something that, for instance, in any town in the world, if they have a project that will benefit cars, for instance, let's suppose they want to move the number of lanes of a major avenue in any city from 2 lanes to 3 lanes. Everyone thinks that is okay. Oh, what a wonderful idea. Let's have now another lane so the traffic will be a bit better. Nobody asks about costs. I was discussing with a mayor in Florianópolis the idea of a covered bike path in the town, because it's hot and people do not use bikes because they will arrive for work all sweat and everything. So we need a covered bike path. And then he said, oh, no, but that's very expensive. I said, what? That is expensive. What about the viaducts, the duplication of the avenue and whatever we do in the town? It's just that if it is for cars, it's okay. For everything else, we have to discuss. So it's a mindset. So first barrier, we have to change the mindset. Cities, our cities are to be, they are not, but they are to be made for the citizens, which is very important. Another major thing is the definition of citizen. People think citizen is a person who lives there. That's not true. A city has users, people who use the city. It's not only the people who live there. So imagine if we did anything for New York, for instance, for Manhattan, where you have 2.5 people live there, and another 2.5 million go to the city every day. So can you imagine if you plan the town just for the 2.5 million who actually live there? It's just stupid. So the city is for its users. So we have to change that concept. The city is for the users, including tourists, students, merchants, everyone who is in the city. They are all users of the city. So citizens is not a good word, because citizens, we think always of people who actually live there. So users of the city, that's a very important concept. Another thing, and this is probably the most complicated, the barrier is complicated, but this one is, I think, is the major, it's a complication that I don't know how to change that, but I have some ideas. Is we think the government has to do something and not us. So this idea that the government is in charge and they will do something. So we like to make sort of a diagnosis of a problem in the town and say, now the government has to do something. No, it's not the government, it's us. And in the city, differently from what happens at the national level, in the cities, the actual people in the government, they also live there. So they are part of the problem and they are part of the solution, as are all of us. We all are part of the solution. So that's another major barrier. We have to think that it's our problem. It's not a problem of the government. I think if we take care of these big barriers, we'll have a significant change in the towns.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense, Eduardo. And let's say, look into the future, what do you think our community should be focusing on? What do you think is the priorities that where we should put the effort and the energy?
Yeah, I think that the change will come from small projects. All the cities have a sort of a running code. This is the code, the construction code, everything. There's a code in the town. And once in a while, they decide they start to change the code. So let's say that every 10 years, the city starts to change the code. That is a major task. To change the code in the city is very, very difficult because there are all sorts of conflicting interests. And so it's very difficult to come to an agreement. Now, for a small part of the town, just this borough here, let's take this borough. Let's take Leicester Square in London, for instance. Leicester Square, they just changed the square. It's not a London plan, it's Leicester Square. So if you change Leicester Square, let's take all the cars and the buses away from Leicester Square and build a square that it looks like Paris. And it's amazing. Everyone loves that. And the value of property around the new Leicester Square is completely different because everyone loves the place now. They want to live there. And remember, live, work, and play in that area. It's one of the multi-centered parts of London now. So, and you have the same thing in Barcelona. Barcelona with the new, the former harbor in Barcelona became a centrality in Barcelona. Everything is there. So people are living, working, and playing in that area. And when you move from one area to the other, you move by public transport, not car. So I'm always talking against cars, and people think that one of my colleagues at the university, he's a psychologist, and he says, I might have a problem in my youth with cars because I'm always talking about cars. But the trouble is, people talk too much, people think too much about cars. So we have to think otherwise to move forward. But coming back to ideas, so what we can do is choose one part of town. There are usual suspects for this. Let's take the old port, the old harbor. Let's take as many places did, the prostitution, the sort of red light district part of the town, or the place around the university. So let's take one part of town and transform that into a center. One of the multi-centers of the town will be there. And we have a methodology for this, but there are several ways of doing this. But with the people who actually use that space in the one that you define, this is where we're going to work, a borough, we have a suggestion that this should be 1 mile radius, the place where you are focusing your interest around 1 mile radius. So it's something that is walkable because the services have to be available within the 1 mile. Some people call this the 15-minute city, like Paris did. Vancouver did the same thing. Melbourne in Australia did the same thing. So it's the 15-minute or the 20-minute city. It's the same concept. You have a center and start with that one. Once that one proves to the population that this is good, so all the other parts of town will start to look at that and say, well, I want that as well. That was a wonderful idea. For instance, when the Sadiq Khan, it's a lady that was the transport secretary for Mayor Bloomberg in New York, when she proposed to close Broadway and widen the sidewalk so that people could have outside cafes and everything around the Broadway, it was sort of a heresy. So she came to the mayor, Bloomberg, with the idea. I talked to her about this, and it's very interesting, the idea. Bloomberg comes from the financial sector, and he made his fortune working with numbers. So Bloomberg told her, well, in God we trust. Everybody else bring data. So she went back, say, all right, I have this idea of closing Broadway, but let's get the data. So she measured how many people went through Broadway by car and walking. And she proved that there are 4 times more people walking in the region than passing by car. So she says now that we need 4 times more the public space for people walking than we have for cars. So she closed Broadway. Bloomberg wanted more data than that, so she closed just the beginning, was around that place in Manhattan where they sell tickets. I think it's around the 42nd Street. She closed that part first, and then she started doing that all over Broadway. Now, at the beginning, all the merchants were against it because they said, no, if you widen the sidewalk, people will never stop here, but they never stopped there anyway. And so she measured what was the effect of closing the space for cars and having more sidewalk. And the sales increased by 50% for a reason that is obvious. People on foot or on a bike, they stop at the merchants more than people who are passing by car. But it's not in our mindset. So to change the mindset, you need an example. So she did that, and now Broadway is a beautiful Parisian avenue in New York, crossing the town, and you have 2 single lanes for cars and buses, and the whole space, the former Broadway, is now a Broadway. All the space is used for outside cafes and restaurants and flowers and everything, which is wonderful. So my take is we should start with small projects, and small projects that are become examples for everyone in town are the solution. I think this is how we should do it. And we have a methodology for this. There are other methodologies to do the same. But I think in 1 week, you can develop a plan for a part with the users. It's not us that go there and say you should do this. And no, we get all the people involved, all the users of that part of town, and we propose what are the changes that are necessary. So I think that there's a lot of work. And talking about innovation, and I think that we are using our talent for innovation on consumer goods. And I think we should concentrate more and more on big solutions for the town. The problem is there. The people are there. We already live in cities all over the world. So it's there. We need innovation in the cities. It might be gadgets as well. It's not against technology, but it can be social innovation. It can be change in behavior. It can be innovation related to the cities. I think is a major opportunity for everyone in the next few years.
Fantastic. I'm really grateful that you share your views, your opinions with us, and I'm sure the audience will enjoy it as well. So thank you very much, Eduardo, for this. I'm sure we will catch up again in the future.
Thank you, Juan Augusto. It was a pleasure.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.